Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in with us today. I'm Kate Bonder, the Director of Community Relations at Carroll County Memorial Hospital. So welcome to our third educational forum. Today, we are specifically focusing on how to talk with teens about substance use and addiction. September was Suicide Awareness Month, and October was Substance Abuse Prevention Month, as well as, of course, everyone knows Red Ribbon Week. So we really felt that this topic was still relevant and timely. So if you attended one of our virtual events last year, some of this will be a repeat to you, but I do like to share how this effort got started. Tracy Wozni, which most people know, with Shape Stance and Acro and Taking Shape, really felt a calling to help local youth and parents, as well as really any adult who interacts with youth. So she reached out to other organizations here in town to figure out a way to make these thoughts come into a reality. So our collaboration includes Burrell Behavioral Health, Carroll County Area YMCA, Carroll County Chamber of Commerce, Carroll County Coalition, Carroll County Health Department, and Carroll County Memorial Hospital, as well as Tracy's organizations. So I did want to mention that Carroll County Coalition is a newly formed group within the last about 3 years. Their mission is to unite change makers, build communities, and address mental health and substance use disorder. So before we watch a video and I introduce the speakers, I did want to just mention a couple quick reminders of please just keep yourselves muted. If you have any questions throughout the program at all, feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat. You don't have to wait till the end. And you can either send those to me directly or to the whole group so everyone can see, and we'll try to monitor those and answer them as we go. So we will go ahead and get this video going and so stay on time.
Carroll County Coalition's mission is to unite changemakers, build communities, and address mental health and substance use disorder. The Coalition is honored to share the stories of local individuals whose lives have been impacted by drug use. As you watch and listen to their stories, please think about what red flags might be in your life that would put you at risk for dealing with this disease with no cure.
I'm Heather Miller, and I'm an addict. I'm 33 years old, and I'm from Carrollton, Missouri. When I was younger, I was a troubled kid. I was a very angry child. I was molested when I was younger. I was in and out of girls' homes, and I struggled with depression. I was always really, really angry, so I didn't have the patience to sit down and do my work. I got frustrated really, really easy because I couldn't understand what I was supposed to be learning. I think the first time when I smoked pot, I think I was 12 or 13 years old with one of my cousins. And then when I got a little older, I had a hysterectomy when I was 19 or 20. And I just felt like there was no use of living, honestly. Because that's all I ever wanted was to be a mom. And to me, when I had that hysterectomy, I just felt like there was nothing to live for. I got really depressed and suicidal, and I got introduced to the Pump It that I got here at BP's, and I got really addicted to that, and then they stopped selling it, and then I got introduced to methamphetamines. It was sold at BP's. To me, at first, in my state of mind, I'm like, okay, well, they sell it at BP's, I can't get in trouble, because I'm buying it at a gas station, not on the street, so I had it in my head that everything would be okay, because I didn't like to do things against the law. So putting that in my head that it was going to be okay to do that, even though I was warned by one of my cousins that it wouldn't be a good idea. But I kind of thought, I was like, oh, I can do it, because every once in a while I'll just do pot. I can do the same thing with this. And my cousin was like, no, once you try it, you'll get addicted to it. Well, with the Pump It, it was I wanted it right when it was gone. I wanted it right then and there. And I'd get angry and I'd start throwing stuff at people. It was like I got more aggressive. It was like I was a totally different person. A family member introduced me to the methamphetamines. I didn't get the same high as I did with the pump it. So in the beginning, I wouldn't use it as much. But it seemed like the more I did, sooner or later, it just kept getting worse. And with the meth there in the beginning, I was just either snorting it or I was smoking it and everything. And then I was, of course, sharing it with other people. So I thought I had it under control. And I did that for maybe about a year or so. And then my mom had a stroke. When my mom had a stroke, it was 3 days after my mom had her stroke is when I started IV using. That high was totally different. I felt the way that I always wanted to. My mind didn't seem like it was going 90 to nothing. My mind wanders a lot. So when I started IV using, it was like all that just disappeared. I think it's because I didn't give up on myself. And I did want the help. Because I didn't like who I was on drugs. And I knew that wasn't me. I think it's because I just didn't want to deal with what I went through. There until I started going to groups, I thought I was over the part with my grandpa. But come to find out, I wasn't. And I think once I opened up about it, everything ended up a lot easier for me. And then able to talk about the hysterectomy and everything. Seems like everything came together after that. I'm not as angry as I was, and now I deal with my anxiety and depression and my PTSD. I deal with everything a lot better. I kind of looked up things online about anxiety and PTSD because I always felt like I was crazy. But it's easier now that I understand why, I feel the way that I do. Once I was able to understand that, everything seemed a lot easier to me. Now I like helping people in their recovery. That's one thing I really, really enjoy. I love being a sponsor. I love leading groups. It makes me feel like I'm a better person. I was always told that I wasn't worth it growing up. So me helping other people in my recovery makes me feel like I'm somebody, and I'm helping my community. That's one thing, because growing up, everybody's like, oh, she has an anger problem. She's not a good person to hang out with. And now with me being in recovery, it's like other people send people to me, and it makes me feel so great about myself, especially the way that people looked at me when I was a child. I don't know, I just love helping my community because this has always been my hometown, and it makes me feel awesome. I think that they come to groups to understand us addicts or people that struggle with mental health. I think they would get more of an understanding and hopefully not go down that road. I think a lot of people that has mental issues, it's hard to ask for help. And then when they don't ask for the help, later on it leads to the addiction. Anyone is welcome to come to I Choose Recovery group. I know when I go to it, it helps me a lot because I get to talk about my addiction or my mental issues, like my anxiety, PTSD. I learn a lot there. I get to meet new friends or new people that struggles with the same thing. I can call them anytime when I need someone to talk to, or if I'm thinking about using or having problems with my anxiety or PTSD. There's always someone there that will help us.
My brother Hunter, he was the light of our life. He was always making somebody laugh. He just changed my life from the moment he was born. I remember the first time seeing him after he was born. I was 6, walking into the hospital, and I was mad because I had a baby brother. and not a sister, so I was a little upset, but then when I saw him, I fell in love. He always had a smile. He was always there for me. He was always trying to help me, never always worrying about himself. It was always about everybody else. He just wanted everybody to be happy. He just wanted the best for everybody else. He didn't care about himself. He cared about others. When he was younger, he was in the hospital a lot. He had cancer, so he mostly had to stay at home a lot. It was hard because he saw the kids his age going out and doing fun stuff that he couldn't do. But he loved watching movies. He could quote every movie there was, and if you found a movie he loved, you were watching it for a week straight. So he loved video games. We were always doing something like that together. He loved to cook. It'd be 3 o'clock in the morning and he'd be trying to cook something, waking everybody in the house up. I'll never forget that. So when he was 3 and a half, he got diagnosed with leukemia, and we did 3.5 years of chemo, and it was hard. Every month he had a chemo treatment. A lot of times he had to stay in the hospital, and then when he was 8, he went into remission, and we did very well with that. He was cancer-free up until his death. He had no issues. They told him cancer will stunt your growth. He had a size 15 shoe and he was like 6'1", so I don't think he did. But no, he went through a hard time going through chemo, and I'm sure that's some of his problems attributed to that. But it was hard, but he was strong. I feel like probably his whole life it was hard. His dad wasn't in the picture, and that was a hard thing for him. But I feel like it really got bad when he was probably 13. He started hanging out with different people and started skipping school. So I think that's when it really changed for him. The day my mom called me and told me to come pick him up from school because he was smoking marijuana in the baseball dugout. So that was the day that I really knew that he was a different person than what I thought. I was angry, I was upset, I was sad. Mostly just upset that my brother, that had every advantage, would choose drugs. I'd say he probably started with a little bit of alcohol and then marijuana, pills, and then it progressed into meth. He didn't care what anyone else thought. He didn't care about anyone else. He just was all about himself and getting his next fix. There were times when he was rude to my mom and hurt her, just the things he would say to us, and just a completely different person. And then when he was coming down off the drugs, it was even worse. But then when he would be off them for a few days, he was back to his normal self, so you would think maybe he's getting back to normal, maybe he's not going to do it anymore, but every time it was just right back to the old ways. And when I saw him at his worst, he ended up in jail for stealing. He got out of jail. He was homeless. He didn't ever know when his next meal would be because he didn't care. He was too busy worried about doing drugs and getting high. He didn't shower. He just wore the same clothes over and over again. He didn't care what anyone thought. He was just worried about his next fix. He was 19. Whenever I got the call that Hunter he had been in an accident, that's what I was told. It was around 4 o'clock on December 9th, and I was asleep because I had worked the night before, and I hurried up and got to the hospital when I got the call. And when I got to the hospital, they wouldn't let me in because of COVID, so I was upset. I met my mom and my grandma here, and when I walked into the room to see him, I've never felt the way I felt that day. I saw him and I instantly knew it wasn't going to be all right this time. They say have faith in a situation like that, but at that time I couldn't. I knew right then. That night they took him by Lifeline to KU Hospital, and when he got there, only my mom could go back. They only had one visitor, so she went there and stayed the night with him, and they had him stable, but shortly after he started having seizures about 30 seconds apart, and they tried everything, and there for a minute they said things were looking up, but then on the 10th, my mom called me and she said, "Courtney, you need to come to the hospital. It's time." So I went to the hospital and they let all of us in. I was so lucky for that. And he was intubated and he was still seizing. I remember just holding his hand and just seeing my mom like that was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. They took us into a little room and they said they wanted to talk to us. And I just thought it was just part of the process. And they said Hunter was an organ donor, and we wanted to know if you guys were okay with that. And we were. We decided that we would give what we could away, and they were able to take his kidneys. So we went through that process. I think the most amazing thing to see was walking him down to the transplant center. Every nurse on the floor, doctor, they lined the hallway for him, and it was just so amazing, and it was beautiful. And then the next morning on the 11th at around 4 in the morning, Hunter passed away. And that's when my heart broke for the first time, truly. It was hard to see my mom, but my mom will never be the same. I'll never be the same. I'll never be an aunt because he was my only sibling. I'll never get to be there at his wedding, and he won't get to be at mine. I tell him that I love him, and I'm so sorry that I couldn't save you. I would have done anything. I would have taken his spot. I would have done anything, and he was loved. No matter what, just because he didn't feel it, he was. I loved him so much, and I know my mom did too. I would tell them, think about your mom, think about your parents, think about your grandma, think about how they're gonna feel if something like that would be to happen to you. Don't think about how it feels for you. Think of the other people in your life. Just, if you have just don't do it. I know that sounds easier said than done, but people are gonna peer pressure you. But be the bigger person and show that you can do it. You don't need drugs. And show them maybe that, they don't have to do the drugs either. It doesn't make you cool to do drugs. It doesn't make you a better person. It ruins your life and your family's life. I feel like if you ever feel like drugs is the answer, always talk to someone. There's always resources. And if you do get in a situation like that, talk to somebody, get help, because it's only going to get worse. You have to ask for help. Don't suffer. I would tell them you are loved. Just because you don't feel it or it seems hard at the time to believe it, you are loved. God loves you. Your family loves you. Just don't give up.
So there's many different signs and symptoms you can look for to see if you're becoming addicted to any substance for that matter, but specifically nicotine. And some of those are you become more maybe irritable, or you're not interacting with your friends or family like you normally would. You're not able to sleep well at night because your mind and brain are overstimulated from the nicotine. You can actually maybe even tell if you're becoming addicted on how long you can go before you feel like you need to have a cigarette or light your vape or whatever the substance may be. If you find that you can't wake up in the morning and get through an hour of your day without reaching for a substance, it's actually a sign of addiction and should hopefully make you step back and realize that you're doing something that you probably shouldn't, and definitely reach out for help, because there is help. Everyone thinks that's the latest and greatest cool thing to do compared to cigarettes. Unfortunately, it's proving to be even more deadly than just cigarette exposure from nicotine. There's electronic cigarette and vaping associated lung injury. Unfortunately, there's no specific treatment for it, and you just have to give supportive care to help the lungs recover. But they're finding that almost 1 in 4 people who suffer from this condition end up on ventilators and have chronic lung disease afterwards. Anytime you get into a sport or extracurricular activity that requires a good lung capacity, thinking of football, baseball, basketball, to cheerleading, band, marching, track and field, things that can potentially even help you get academic scholarships for your future education. If you don't have the lung capacity to participate in those events, you definitely could ruin your chances of getting something to help your education and therefore your life. And there is no safe level of nicotine, regardless in what form, whether it's firsthand smoking yourself or with vaping or even secondhand smoke from those around you. Alcohol can actually be very devastating to a developing brain, all the way from conception, if a mother were to drink while she was pregnant, all the way till your brain's fully developed, which is much later than most people think. Later into their 20s and 30s, you're still developing your brain tissue. Your ability to raise your IQ and develop new skills and retain educational pieces that make you who you are as an adult. And if you are doing substances, alcohol included, as an underage adolescent, you have the risk of actually damaging those brain cells or not letting them grow to their full potential. You can have one drink and feel like you're on top of the world, and your brain almost have a brain fog that blocks out where you're at and maybe some stress or different things in your life, and maybe that feels good to you, but in the end you're just doing more harm than good. Some people take that to excess and can actually binge drink. Unfortunately, it's a very common thing in underage adolescents or even young adults in their early 20s, college particularly. You can actually binge drink, which is hard to believe. It's literally just 3 to 5 drinks in one sitting, and you can actually have some acute alcohol poisoning from that. It can be very deadly, unfortunately, and sometimes it happens before you realize what's going on. You're looking out for friends, or you're in a group of people that are drinking excessively, if they're starting to not make sense or slurring their words, they're maybe struggling to keep their eyes open and wanting to pass out on the table, or they're sweating, you feel like their heart beats up, they're slowing their breathing down. Those are all very concerning signs for alcohol poisoning. If that person were to be left alone, they could slip into a coma, have seizures, and unfortunately can progress all the way to death before you realize what's going on. In my work with working in the emergency room and seeing some after effects of some poor choices, whether it's substance abuse with marijuana or other street drugs or alcohol for that matter. When you do substances that alter your mind, you're going to be making decisions that you normally wouldn't make on a normal day. Maybe you get in a car with someone who's drunk, or you'd get in a car and you're drunk and think, oh, I can handle this, I'm just a little buzzed. So you feel like you're comfortable to drive home. Unfortunately, I've seen too many accidents or been in the emergency room to take care of patients that have injuries, whether it's broken bones or concussions, or the worst ones are the patients that don't make it to the emergency room and don't go home. The hardest thing is to think about if you're a parent at home or want to have that knock on the door at 3 a.m. or the phone call from the sheriff telling you that your child's been in an accident, but there's not a hospital you can go see them in because they didn't make it.
Wow, very impactful video. We encourage you to share that with others if you haven't already. I know the Carroll County Coalition page has it on their Facebook page, as well as hospitals shared it. I'm sure our other partnering organizations did as well, but we can definitely send that out to you afterwards as well, the link to the video. So Misty Williams is going to get us started off. Misty works at Carroll County Memorial Hospital, as well as represents the Mercy Road Recovery Center.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay. So hi, thank you. I'm so excited about us hosting this event today. I just wanted to make a couple comments about the video before I go into a couple of things. You know, Courtney's a coworker of mine here at the hospital, and I was here the evening that her brother was brought in, and that was my first encounter with overdose, and I was a drug user for over off and on for 22 years, and the reality and the finality of it all was surreal because, you know, it made me think about the whole time that I was using drugs. I never thought that I could die using them. And that was a reality check for me that evening. And it's a reality check that I share with a lot of people that are active in their addiction. Little Heather Miller, we like to call her our poster child for Mercy Road, for the gathering table. She's been the most awesome success story ever. One of the great things that came from this video that she shared with us Wednesday night was that when she was trick-or-treating this past Halloween, she ran into her 6th grade teacher who had seen the video and had no clue what Heather was suffering outside of school. And so they got to have some, you know, talk and get reacquainted with one another. And Heather shared that really, really blessed her. So I think the one thing that I want to just preface before we start talking about drugs is that whenever I'm talking, I'm sure I'm going to be talking for Christy too, I'm including alcohol as I'm talking about drugs, because alcohol is a drug because it is a mind-altering substance. As you see, I've listed up here behavior changes that might indicate drug use. I'm just going to go back and just preface that I started using alcohol at 13 years of age and suffered a very traumatic loss at the age of 14. And as a, you know, I look back and I think I had a lot of these signs and symptoms. You know, and this doesn't necessarily mean that your child's using drugs or alcohol, okay? It could mean that there's an underlying mental health issue that needs to be addressed too, because some of these mimic substance use and mental health. But, you know, is your child withdrawn, depressed? Are they sleeping a lot? Are they not caring about the way that they look? Are they spending time with people they don't normally spend time with? Do they have a new group of friends? Has their mood changed? Are they irritable and grumpy? Are they up at night? Are they sleeping during the day? Are they having difficulty concentrating? Are you getting phone calls from the school about their behavior? Lots of times their eyes can tell you a lot. Are they glazed over? Are they red, bloodshot? Do they have a runny nose? If your child doesn't suffer from allergies and they don't have a cold, that might be something that you need to, that might be a clue that there's something more going on. My mom suspected my drug use whenever I was younger, but never confronted me with it. And so I think that we have to be very bold in having those conversations with our kids. You can't just say it's bad to use drugs. Okay, well, there's a lot of things that are bad to do. You've got to really let them know, make them watch this video if they haven't already. I know a lot of the schools showed it, but make sure they know that drugs can, ultimately cause death. The one thing that whenever you're, we're talking about whether or not a child's using drugs or alcohol, you and your spouse got to be on the same page about what's okay and what's not okay. Some people, and this is just, allowing underage drinking in your home is just not acceptable. It's something I know it happens more often than not everywhere. But you're saying that it's okay. And just like Dr. Rawls was talking about interrupting that brain development. So, that's something that you can think about not allowing in your home. I know that my kids used to tell, they would call me a hypocrite. I would say, that's not okay, but they're like, well, you're doing that. Kind of like if I say a swear word, and I get onto them for it. Well, you say that word. Why can't I say that word? So if you're drinking at home and you're confronting your kid about drinking, they may say, well, you drink. Well, you're of age to drink. They're not of age to drink. You just want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row when you go to confront your child about your suspicion that they're using drugs or alcohol. And don't be shameful about your approach whenever you're visiting and when you're talking to them about it. I know Christy's going to go into a little bit more depth about how to communicate with your child, so I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about that. But like I said, you need to be very, I'm going to scroll down a little bit on my screen here. Don't be so general about your message to your kids, and have conversations with them frequently just about how they're feeling. How was their day? What's going on in your life? I can tell you that I probably suffered from depression way before I was diagnosed with it at the age of 18. And I'm not saying that had it had been treated earlier, that would have changed the outcome, because I'm not ever going to point fingers at my parents for something they did or didn't do with regards to my addiction, because that's mine, and it's nothing that they created. It's something that I chose. So, but if you suspect that your child has some mental health things going on, you all need to talk about it, encourage that. The number one reason a lot of people become addicted to drugs and alcohol at a young age, they start using, is because they don't feel right up here, and so getting a handle on that with meeting with your primary care physician, and if they need counseling, can kind of nip that in the bud and may prevent them from seeking something else to make them feel better when it's actually making them feel worse. They need to understand that addiction does not discriminate. Anybody can become addicted. It doesn't have to be somebody, that lives on this side of town or lives on this side of town. Anybody can become addicted. And I always tell people, I became addicted when I took that first drink at 13 years old, because that's when it all started for me. And so you need to be very discouraging of the drinking. They just need to understand that there are serious permanent consequences to even using one time. For young girls, getting drunk for the first time may end up in them being raped or having sexual intercourse that, was not really wanted, but they didn't know they didn't want it, and then they have to live with that consequence. I know for me as a young person, that made me very shameful. So then those things can kind of encourage your continued drinking. You would think it would discourage it, but you don't want to feel what you're feeling, the shame and the regret. So you want to drink or you use drugs to not feel. I think that the biggest thing that we have to be looking out for one another. So if you really, if there's educators that are on here today in schools, if you feel something's not right with the kid, it's probably not right. And so I just think I encourage you to address those things and be their champion. They may not want you to be their champion, but they need you to be their champion. And we're all in this together. So if you see other kids that your kids are friends with or whatever, and something more is going on, the parent may not know. I just, we have to, it takes a village. So we are all a part of that village. So we're all in this together, and it takes all of us to have a healthy community and healthy kiddos. So, so with that, I'm going to pass it on to Christy, or it's Tracy. It's Tracy's turn.
Thank you, Misty. There you go. Good. Well, first of all, I just want to, piggyback off of what Misty said. And this is our mission of bringing so many entities of the community to become really aware. And my space, of course, is with youth, which many of you, if you're parents on this, whether you're catching this recording as an educator or just a community leader, a business leader, we are definitely in the space to be able to lead and raise the youth that we have, the privilege to be a part of as leaders. So I'm really going to kind of come just really short and quickly, as many of these are similar to what I know Christy and Misty are already saying, but from the youth perspective and what I hear actually with having mostly females in my line of business, but also throughout the United States, being able to network with a lot of kids that are through our leadership program. So I'm going to do a little quick screen share and give you not only some statistics, but also some tools, hopefully, that you guys can leave with. So first of all, as far as facts, when we talked about this a month ago, the biggest concern is that the stress and anxiety that the teenagers, and actually ages 8 and up, are experiencing right now is completely escalating after the pandemic. So what we've already known as teenagers having a lot of stress and anxiety is now going to accelerate, especially with the statistics that we're seeing here. So a lot of these are cited from the Mental Health America organization, looking at 1 to 3 teenagers that have already experienced or are experiencing anxiety disorder, looking at a 32% increase of those teens with anxiety and stress or depression from 2018 to 2021. So this is a huge jump. If you're a parent, if you're an educator, if you're a community leader, I think we can all agree that we have definitely seen an increase in anxiety and stress in our youth today. So this is why we're here, to learn, to grow, to educate together, to link arms, and let's be able to get some resources today to go out there and help these kids and what they need. 4.5 million children right now from ages to 18 have a diagnosed anxiety disorder. I think this is alarming. Again, 23% teenagers who are diagnosed with anxiety will turn to substance abuse. So that is where the anxiety is here. That's what we're leading to. And that's unfortunately one of the outlets that they will be going to. This was probably the most alarming statistic. And I know Christy's got a lot more with her profession, what she is. 70% of the children under the age of 13, this is younger, these are not even teenagers, who try an illegal drug will develop some type of substance abuse disorder within the next 7 years. So when it's happening young, guys, this is where we start to see this trail into that substance abuse, and then being able to see that a little way less, right, at 27% when they're over 17. So all of us as parents, all of us as youth educators, all of us as, I know I've seen some principals on here, being aware and finding these tools that we can help with. Okay, let me go to this. Here's some do's and don'ts. I'm gonna throw them at you pretty quick. Again, similar to what Misty said, the conversations have to start early, whether it's in the school system, whether it's in your place of employment. We're talking about that in our dance studio at 5 years old. Not necessarily alcohol and drugs, but really what's the rights and the wrongs, character values. So the conversation cannot happen early enough. Being the example, again, just what Misty said, we can't expect our kids to follow. Modeling is the biggest influence. So what we do as adults is going to carry off. We know this, it's common sense, but we still need to be aware that this is more effective. They are more affected by the modeling and the example than they have ever been in the past 3 years. So Setting expectations. What are those rules? And it goes back to the conversations we're having as their adult influencers. Staying educated. If you're on this call, you are doing that. We are staying educated. We're learning and we're growing together and opening those conversations. 2 things I would encourage. Number 1, statistics. I'm not a big statistics person, but I do know that the results of people sitting down and eating dinner together these days is astronomically a great benefit. So find the pockets of time. It doesn't have to all be about, you know, the do's and don'ts of alcohol and substance abuse, but having conversations with your child on the way to school. I used to do that with my kids all the time. We had life lessons. Turn the phone off, get off the scroll to Facebook and spend some quality time, and you will see a difference of impact that we're going to have, those little tiny habits. Consistency with co-parenting. Again, this is probably all 3 of us are going to say this, but once you can get on the same page, if the school is not in line with the community, who is not in line with the parents, that becomes a really hard feat, right? And my advice on explaining the consequences, I'm also a mom. I'm a little empty nester now, but I've seen it. If you relate the consequences more to what's in it for them, like you're not going to be able to start football. You're not going to be able to get your driver's license. Sometimes like the brain, you know, all the brain research and things, they're not going to listen to that. So try to find the outlet that is going to mean what's in it for them, because this is a generation that is concerned about what's in it for them. All right, I'm going backwards on the slides. Okay, and then lastly, what do we not want to do? Don't make it a one-time conversation. Again, joining together, converse, make a habit of that in your time with your child, and do not be naive. I will show this last slide on a conversation I had last week during Red Ribbon Week, which all of us on this call were very active in promoting that awareness in our communities, and not to be vague in your conversations. Really get specific with them and leading from the top down, meaning, you know, this is our rules, and if you do this, they tend to go against that. Guiding them from the side in those conversations are going to help so much more, and asking questions instead of telling them all the things that you know as an adult. That's when they like to close up. So last week, I'll finish up with this and toss it over to Christy. Last week in our leadership class, which we're taking 8-year-olds up until 18-year-olds. Again, most of these are female. I do have a couple males. And then also outside of the Missouri area, I have some other schools that are on there. So it's not just Missouri based. So we did a poll. I said, okay, give me guys from 0 to 10 in your schools right now. What is the biggest substance abuse issue you have right now? And I said, marijuana and drugs are were kind of categorized together. And universal in all of my locations, 6 and up, they felt like marijuana and up was the problem. Alcohol was an 8, vaping, 10 out of 10, almost every single kid. So you heard from the video, some of the statistics or some of the effects that vaping can have. I think that is something that we really, as leaders of this community, leaders of these kids, really need to be aware of and guide those conversations, because that's where we can be naive and we can also be a little vague on knowing what that is. I didn't even know what it was, absolutely, honestly. So I'm going to take that. Hopefully those will give you some nuggets to think about specifically to what this generation thinks. And Christy, I'm going to let it toss over to you so you can kind of give some of your expertise in your field, and we'll wrap it up.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I'm just going to follow up on how to communicate with our teens, our youth, and what is our role as parents and prevention of substance use. So, all right, here we go. So how do I talk with my youth about substance use? So I know Missy and Tracy touched on this. This is a big thing. So we've got to keep an open mind. We also need to remember to put ourselves in their shoes. Today's youth, they have just as much stress, as sometimes not more, than adults do. We got to set boundaries, be clear about your goals. Must stay calm and relaxed in having these conversations with our youth. Be honest. Finding teaching opportunities. Kids talk. They talk about what happens, what they've seen at school among their classmates, peers, friends. Use those opportunities all the time. You can ask my kids. I I do it no matter, what the subject is, whether it's substance abuse or other things. So take advantage of these teaching opportunities. Our kids do give them to us, so let's use them. Don't lecture. When we start lecturing, we turn into the teacher in the Charlie Brown cartoons. All they hear is wah, 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 wah. So do not lecture. Find a comfortable setting. Don't do it in front of their friends. Be aware of body language. Most of communication is done through body language. They will tell you if they're listening and opening to this or not. Ask open-ended questions. Do not ask questions that you're going to get a yes or no answer to. Be positive. Let them know you hear them. Sum up and ask questions. Ask permission. If they're not about this, then again, you're the school teacher in Charlie Brown. So offer empathy and compassion to them. So where do you start when it comes to addressing this with our youth? So we need to know what their perceptions and understandings are in substance use. Ask questions like, do you know what vaping, drinking, what overdoses, if they say yes, what do you know about it? Ask these questions like, what do you know about why someone your age is more likely to get addicted to drugs or alcohol or not? When they see these messages, especially this last couple months, there have been a lot of messages about substance use. What are their thoughts about it? What are myths and facts? Do they know that? There are so many myths about when it comes to addictions and different things. Ask about their friends and peer pressure. What would they do if they saw their friends taking marijuana when you're 8 years old? What do they do, or drinking? How do they handle it? Do they feel pressured into doing these things or not? And also asking them, are they concerned about anyone? And that maybe they truly have someone they're concerned about, or they may use this just kind of explore you and fill you out on how, if they're using something. And ask them, do they know how to ask for help or who to ask? So one of the things I cannot stress enough with people is our words have meaning. Words are very powerful. The old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, words can never hurt me. That is so not true. Words have meaning, and we're seeing it even more and more with today's youth, and especially with the pandemic and more things virtual. So words to avoid, but especially like you did well, but instead say, hey, you did well on this. Can you do this instead? I'd like to see you do this instead. We should not say you should do this, those kind of things. We want to say, I want you to do this. Bad, there's like Misty mentioned earlier, there's a lot of bad things. And bad is more confrontational, it's judgmental, and can shut your youth down. Say things like, this is harmful, this is unhealthy, and explain these things, how it's unharmful, how that is unhealthy. Don't say stupid. You're going to shut them down and instantly. Using words of, I disapprove of this. Yes, you may disapprove this, and I hope we all disapprove of this substance use and everything, but for us to get our kids' attention and for them to listen to us, we want to talk about, because yes, you may disapprove, but you're also concerned. And that's what they need to know, that you're concerned, that you're worried, that you're not disappointed, that you're worried. Don't say can't, say don't want. I don't want you to this to happen to you, those kind of things. And the big thing is I statements, saying I feel this when a situation is occurring, things like that. So we want them to know that we're not lecturing, that we're worried, that we're concerned, so that way they can stay in tune with us and have these important, meaningful conversations. So resources to help with communication role playing. So Parents Lead is a great opportunity to help, and talks about a lot of the things that we, Misty and Tracy talked about with statistics, tips on communicating with your youth. Also, it even has some things to say, well, if your youth responds to this is what you can tell them back. Some of those general statements. Also, SAMHSA has an app that you can download for free on your phone that helps you with role playing and having these conversations with our youth about substance use. The bottom line is you guys are the most important and powerful people in your child's life. Our behavior is learned, and you are their role model. You are the ones from birth on that they're looking to and guiding them in their lives. So even if you're not a parent and you are working with youth, you're still playing a huge significant role in their lives. And so whether you're a teacher, coach, grandparent, sister, some type of mentor, you guys are there in their lives, and you're going to help them, guide them through each stage in their life. And it has studies have shown, statistics has proven that caring adults, especially who have frequent conversations with youth about the dangers of substance use, show a huge decline in substance use. And then, that didn't turn out very big. So additional resources. I work at Burrell Behavioral Health. We help with that. Live Well Clinic is also here in Carrollton, and that provides support with this. Mercy Road Recovery, Compass Health. There's resources on Center of Addiction, National Institute of Drug Abuse was where I've gotten information to help with today's presentation, along with SAMHSA. So that's Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. There's also the National Council of Alcoholism and Drug Dependence, Parents Lead, which is a great resource, Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, A Parent's Guide to Drug Prevention. So that's all I have. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to share, and to share, this link for communication tips or the app by SAMHSA.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but we do know we're over time. So if you need to jump off, that's totally fine, or you can stick around if you do want to ask the girls questions. They'll be on for a few more minutes. I believe we're going to send out their contact information to you guys afterwards. So that way, if you want to reach out to them later, if you come up with a question, you can do so. But otherwise, just thank you guys for attending today. As Missy had mentioned, we're all a team here. It takes everybody to make this a healthy and successful community, and definitely utilize the resources that we do have. So anyway, that's all I've got, unless one of you girls have anything else to add. Otherwise, if there's questions, then we'll stick around.
Thank you guys for taking your lunch hour to learn and grow, because that's what it's going to take, right? And you're welcome. I think we got a couple comments in the chat, but thank you, Kate, for monitoring and getting this together.
Of course.
Also, part the Carroll County Coalition, we're also welcome to anybody who wants to join and help with spreading the news and the message and educating about mental health and substance use. So